Welcome everyone to this Privacy Rules, Privacy Espresso. Today I'm joined by Luca Egitto from the Italian law firm RP Legal and Tax, because we're going to discuss about something related to Italy, of course. That is the recent position of the Italian DPA against ChatGPT, in particular the ban that has been issued by the authority. And we are here with Luca today in order to receive a bit more information on the reason behind the ban and what's happening. So Luca, first of all, thanks a lot for being with us. And my first question for you is, what's happening and why this decision by the Italian DPA?
Ciao Alessandro, thanks for this. Thanks for taking your time and thanks for the opportunity to discuss this. So it made the headlines. Basically, it's a block and a prohibition to use, although the supervisory authority in Italy did not issue a blocking injunction or a total restraint, but issued a temporary limitation, which is one of the tools that GDPR gives supervisory authorities to freeze a situation when an inquiry is ongoing, which is what basically the supervisory authority declared. So they are further investigating. They made a sort of summary judgment using, let's say, a terminology which is often used in civil procedure. Provvedimento cautelare means that is an interim decision which is based on a summary assessment. So they openly said, okay, we're investigating, we still don't know enough, but for the moment, we ask OpenAI to limit processing in this aspect, which is ChatGPT, because there are a number of red flags which were found. However, differently from other situations when limitation targets one processing but keeps the service alive, I don't know what other options OpenAI has to comply other than prohibiting or blocking the use voluntarily for Italy, because there's no way that they could resolve this 4 or 3 red flags that were raised without affecting the whole system. So it's a temporary limitation, but the ultimate effect is equivalent to a block. And indeed, the supervisory authority itself used the term block GPT, although the order is slightly different. The ultimate effect is practically the same.
Perfect, Luca. That's very clear. I heard you mentioning about the 4 flags, so the 4 issues that have been underlined by the Italian authority. So can you delve a bit more on them?
The supervisory authority issued a brief press statement, and also the resolution is really short, possibly because they're still investigating. But the first thing that was flagged was the lack of information for data subjects regarding how their data were being used to train the model. The second thing is that there appears to be no statement on what the legal basis for processing under Article 6 and 9 of GDPR were. So it's up to us to find out, to imagine, but this is something that GDPR does not allow. It should be the other way around. It should be the controller telling us how data are being processed and on what basis. This regards primarily the personal data of those people whose data are published on the internet and are scrapped by the deep learning system underlying OpenAI. So people that have their data published on the internet have such data scrapped and used without them knowing. Yeah. So this is the first lack of information. But overall, there are also very big shortfalls in the overall information provided to the users. So there is some sort of data privacy notice, but definitely is not enough for what is required by GDPR. The further aspect that was strongly remarked by the data protection authorities that the way this system works does not guarantee the accuracy of the information. Although this is somehow disclaimed in the website, there may be a case where a user continuously receives information regarding other data subjects which are false. So a lot of people is complaining about the fact that their biography is being misinterpreted and mishandled by the system. So there is a chance for disseminating non-accurate information regarding data subjects without a proper system for data subjects to request rectification. But this is another shortfall. The major one is age, which is somehow very similar to what the supervisory authority did with TikTok. Age verification is not sufficient as it is now. There apparently are no ways to properly address this issue. This is a big gap that the supervisory authority wants to be addressed. So this is the message that was conveyed to the US entity, OpenAI, that is handling ChatGPT. We should take into account in favor of the supervisory authority that ChatGPT is just one of the processing activities carried out by OpenAI. So to some extent, it's true that they're just limiting one, not everything that OpenAI does. Okay. But certainly OpenAI, although being a US entity, is clearly targeting users in the EU. And when it comes to Italy, it made the headlines months ago, and there are already 1 million people using it. So this is enough for the supervisory authority to take action, because if millions of Italians and Europeans are using it, then GDPR applies.
Absolutely. And speaking about this, what do you envisage as next thing to happen between the authority and ChatGPT? Any reaction?
In principle, this is something that can be resolved, and normally is resolved with the cooperation of the controller. So I think that age verification is an issue that can be resolved. Data privacy notice also can be published in a proper manner. What is harder, in my view, is to find an acceptable legal basis to process data that are scrapped and collected over the internet randomly and massively. There is a case for also advising the data subjects that are affected by this, because we're not talking about a research institution that has per se legal grounds to process data in the public interest. It's a private corporation doing for profit. So that is going to be a hard call, but at the same time, it's an issue pertaining to most AI systems. They need information with no distinction to train their models. There can be, security measures to minimize or reduce processing personal data. That's true, but this is less easy than, age verification and a data privacy notice. So in principle, it can be resolved, but it depends at what cost for OpenAI. We know that in recent cases, some US providers told that they simply may not fix one problem for one country because they are one system globally. It's gonna be tough, but in principle, the supervisory authority is open to resolve it, to clear the case, because they don't want to be perceived and also act like a censorship authority. They're just trying to protect people.
Absolutely, and the last point you touched, that U.S. companies are providing as an answer the fact that they cannot change things just for one country brings me to my next question.
I don't know. It's not entirely clear.
Yeah. But my question in this regard is: do you think that this position by the Italian DPA will have effects also on the position of other DPAs at the EU and international level?
So GDPR is a pan-European legislation, so it is quite difficult for a data protection authority to conflict with another one. This does not mean that all supervisory authorities are expected or required to take the same initiative, but at the same time, it's going to be very hard for them to ignore this. And it is likely that some more will follow, according to some, insights. France, Ireland, for example, are considering consulting with the Italian DPA to investigate further. The FTC is investigating. Canadian authorities are investigating. This is a disruptive technology that per se doesn't disclose how it works. So failure to disclose, lack of transparency are per se critical aspects for GDPR, but not just for GDPR. So definitely there are going to be more authorities investigating. We've seen with Shrems 2 or Google Analytics that if one authority proceeds in one way, further authorities may follow, proceeding accordingly in the same manner. So I think it is likely that some more will follow.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Luca, because that's extremely interesting. And this is one of the first cases related to such a disruptive technology, as you were rightly saying. We are running out of our time, so I would like to thank you very much for being with us, and I would also like to thank our listeners for being with us today, inviting them to joining us also with our next Privacy Espresso. So thank you, Luca, again, and thank everybody.
Bye.